Well, hello, America. Happy Valentine's Day weekend. Are you watching with your significant other? Do you feel like a loser like I do? I mean, it's Valentine's Day. What are you doing with your life? Good God, man. Go out and get the chocolate, that you bought for her. I love you, honey. Really, I do. This is the worst part of it, isn't it? Where I have no idea what's what, and if the instructions on the back, if I find them, then I dump it all out. All you want to do is you want to get one that's like good, but then you eat part of it, and here, Erin, you try one. She'll find the good one, and then I'll eat the rest of it. Now listen, the reason why I'm bringing up the chocolate is because you're going to really, really need it. Badly. Trust me. Gerard Salente is a man who watches trends to see what the future holds. He is with me now. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello.
Good to see you. You know what? I have to tell you, you may either be full-fledged nuts or a genius. Which is it?
Well, I'm not a genius, but I look at current events that are forming future trends,
right,
and try to give as an objective analysis of how those current events are shaping tomorrow.
You have been saying something that, because I've been looking for people like you for a while. I've been looking for people who have some credibility in the past and have seen future trends that have actually come through, like you have, that actually see the whole forest. Everybody has been talking about the financial tree in America, and they would say, well, the banks made some bad loans and everything else. It's not just our banks, it's the entire country, and more importantly, it's the entire world. Can you talk a little bit about, you're not saying this is a deep recession. You're saying, what are you calling this, the Greatest Depression?
The Greatest Depression, and I'll tell you why. You go back to the last depression. Most people didn't own homes. There was no such thing as a home equity loan. As a matter of fact, if you had a second mortgage, you were a loser. Back then, people didn't own credit cards. They weren't $14 trillion in debt. And back then, we had trade surpluses. We weren't $700 billion in the hole each year, and we had budget surpluses. What is it now, Glenn? What's the deficit now? What, 13 trillion?
Yeah, well, 10 trillion before we started.
Yeah, I mean, every week a couple of trillion here or there, We didn't have that. And importantly, back then, when we did get out of it with the beginning of World War II, we had a manufacturing capability. We were the world's #1 manufacturing engine. We produced our way out of it. And another important factor, back then, many people were self-sufficient. 21% of the people lived on farms back then. I mean, today there are more people in prison than working on farms. And back then, we were an ascending society. I have a photograph of my parents' wedding, may their souls rest in peace, from 1934. Italian immigrants, and not only the Italian immigrants, the immigrant classes of those days. And you look at how refined they were dressed. They worked in fish stores, in vegetable stores. My father worked in a radio factory. We were an ascending society. Now, you know the data. You go into major cities. You're lucky if these kids, 50% of them, are graduating high school. So we're going into this decline at a very weakened time.
Well, this is nice to have this going on. You say that there is a chance, because people now are saying, well, what do I put my money in? I mean, we're seeing gold go through the roof now. I just read a report in the Financial Times today that gold coins, they've sold more gold coins in the last month than what shipped in the first half of 2007. People are rushing to gold because they don't trust anything. People still say, oh, well, the banks are fine, et cetera, et cetera. You think that there is a possibility that your assets are all frozen in the coming months or year, or when?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just preface this by saying I'm a political atheist, so anything I have to say has nothing to do with I like or dislike a politician.
Right.
I don't believe in political religions, I don't believe in political gods, and I don't genuflect at political altars.
Got it.
Having said that, they're putting the mantle of FDR on Obama's shoulders. Let's remember one of the first things FDR did, called a bank holiday. And I love the language, holiday.
Right.
Yeah, you can't get your money out. And they do this in countries where there's a lot of problems, like in Argentina. So your money may be frozen. The second thing that they did with FDR is the Federal Emergency Banking Act of 1933, is they confiscated the people's gold. If you didn't turn in your gold, you went to jail, and if they caught you with whatever you had to pay double the amount.
But you also, I think it was a 10 or a 20-year prison term.
Yeah, I believe it's 10 years. Yeah.
So
you didn't get the Bernie Madoff deal.
Right. So, but what you're talking about is something that I've never heard anybody actually address, and that is the rest of the world is blaming this on America. Everybody's saying this is capitalism gone bad, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a global event. This is not going to be just America going down or anybody else just going down by themselves. You see this as a global depression, major global depression. One
of the ways of tracking trends, we say current events form future trends. Look what happened in Iceland. They overthrew the government. Lithuania, Latvia. What happened in Greece this last summer, it wasn't about shooting a 15-year-old kid or this last fall. It was about the corruption of the government, and the people have had it. You see the demonstrations in France. This is a global meltdown. 120,000 major riots in China last year.
I said this, I don't know how long ago. If this thing melts down, there are people that I've heard, you know what, I'm going to grab the pitchfork and I'm going to go to Washington. And I have that pitchfork mentality in me. But I don't think we're headed for an American revolution. If this would go down, we would be talking about a global Katrina. It would be everyone's worst nightmare, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, because we're not a refined society anymore. We are a society, and I think the whole world feels this way. They just rip each other apart. True or false? You see that?
Well, I could see a lot of violence in this country. I mean, I talked about the difference between then and now. You know, back then, you didn't have people whacked out on crystal meth and out of their minds. So we have a much more violent society in a lot of ways, but on the global level, this is a global meltdown. Look, you know the numbers. What are they, $500 trillion worth of credit swap fault derivatives that nobody even knows what those things mean? Like $1 billion here, $1 trillion there is not going to correct anything. It's a global meltdown. And if people think China is going to rise to the top, forget about it. They have 1.3 billion people and 1 million problems. This is going to be global.
When do you think this happens?
It's going to be in stages. The next stage we're calling for is the collapse of '09. And I'm just telling you the way we see it.
I mean, I don't really think we need that, do we? Really? Collapse of '09? Can't we name it something happier? It's going to be kind of uncomfortable.
No, it's going to be a collapse.
Maybe take a sleeping pill here and there.
No.
'09. Okay, collapse of '09, so it's coming this year.
We're going to start seeing it around March. You're going to start seeing the real first feelings of it when you're going to start seeing more retail chains go belly up. Now, let me put it all together. Go back to '08. We saw Stephen Barry's Linens and Things, Sharper Image, a whole bunch of...
I was driving down Fifth Avenue today, and I saw, I don't know if it went out of business here in Fifth Avenue. Anybody notice that the Brooks Brothers is gone? Here's this Brooks Brothers gone on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, the White Shoe Boys are even
I mean, it's like, what? You got to be kidding me. Where am I going to buy my ascot, lovey? Anyway.
So now we look at that. We look at the retail sector. Who's going to rent? Who's going to take all these vacant stores? We saw the closings, Starbucks, Home Depot, etc. There's going to be all these vacant stores. Who's going to rent them? The answer is nobody. Then you look at the commercial real estate sector in the buildings. Who's going to occupy all this office space when you see the Merrill Lynch's and the Bear Stearns and all the Wachovias, and you hear the announcements of 50,000 laid off here, 50,000 there. We're going to have a commercial real estate collapse. That's the collapse of '09, and it's going to dwarf the subprime problem because this thing is really leveraged.
Okay. I'm going to take about a gallon of Prozac, and then maybe we'll invite him back and talk about how are your kids going to go to college, because that is a concern of yours and a concern of mine. I don't know how you put all these people out of work and then not have colleges also feel the ramifications of a bad economy, and then what happens to the 20-somethings. So